A year later, take two.
Hi.
Hi again.
Take two with a mustache.
So, going way, way back to before this film, how'd you get into acting? Was it a thing you wanted to do as a little kid?
Yeah, I was born into it. My parents were both theater actors. My mom was a beautiful, beautiful dancer. She toured with Mickey Rooney and Ann Miller and Sugar Babies. My dad was an actor-singer, played every male role in West Side Story. So I was kind of, I guess, destined to be. So when I was 5, I did Joseph of the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, and from then on, it was all history. So I knew what I wanted to do ever since I was 5 years old.
And how did they feel the day you told them, I want to make this a profession?
I don't know if I ever actually said that. I think it just kind of one thing rolled into another. I don't know. I just kind of followed it, and it's what I live off of now. I've never had a real job in my life. I've never worked retail, never done anything like that, which I'm very, very happy to say. And it just kind of became my profession. I never pursued it as a profession, just pursued it as a passion.
And now, at one point, did you realize this actually is a real job? Was there one gig you got that you're like, I feel like I'm really here now?
It's never felt like a job, but the one time I kind of saw it for what it was when I moved out and I got my first apartment and I had rent to pay every month, and I kind of started to see the money go and go and go and go, and then I realized, okay, I have to book jobs to continue to survive. I never want to have to work a real job, which is very selfish.
If you did have to work a real job, or a real job in quotes, I guess, what would your real job be?
See, I would say something in music, but then that wouldn't be considered like a real job. A real job, I would love to. I think it'd be a blast being like working at a call center, because I would practice my accents and stuff every day, and I just think I would get fired immediately. But
so like an acting outlet, I guess.
Yeah, and something that ties back to acting in some way. I'm not going to go be a plumber, although you could tie that back to acting too.
So now, how'd you get to Meet Monica Velour? Was it just a series of auditions you were on, and this one just kind of hit? Yeah,
it was. I got the script. It's just regular audition, and after the first audition, even though Keith, the director, says he didn't like me and he didn't want to see me again and all that, but after the first audition, I thought, hey, this is something I could book. I could book this. There's a chance, because some of them you go in and you're like the one 16-year-old, 6'3" kid, and everybody else is Hispanic or African, and you're like, I'm not going to get this at all. But that was one I thought I could book, and then call back, met Kim, read with Kim, came down to me and another guy, and the other guy looked like Howard Stern, like a young Howard Stern, and booked it.
What was it like the first time you got to read with Kim? Was that kind of, starstruck at all?
No, I don't think so, because she made it feel very comfortable. I remember I was waiting in the waiting room, and they were over there, and there were actors coming in and out, and they were mixing and matching people, and the door opened, and I caught eyes with her for the first time, and she kind of gave me a nice smile and a little salute, and then when I went in the room, and we had done a scene, we had read through one of the first scenes together, and then she just put her hand on my back, like really gently and nicely and sort of maternally, even though she would hate it if I said anything about being maternal. And it was comfortable from then on out. It was just extremely comfortable.
And what about just being in a waiting room with like other candidates for the spot? Were you ever in that situation?
Yeah, I have. I've tested for like pilots and stuff like that, and it's always weird. But this one was specifically weird because it was, I don't know how to describe it. It was like, okay, it's like if you took Tetris and you looked to the right of the Tetris board, and there was the little whatever robot that's sending the blocks to you, and he has a bag of blocks, and there's the blue one, and there's the yellow L and all that stuff. It was like a bag of Tetris blocks. Everybody was weird and oddly shaped, and there was a kid with giant eyes, and this kid with like giant anime lips, and I was like, oh, I don't fit in here. I don't fit. What is this? What is this? And then I look in a mirror and I realize, oh yeah, I'm 6'3" and I weigh 40 pounds. Yeah, I guess I'm the tall blue. I'm the long blue line.
Well,
But
Keith
it's
did mention that Clark Duke was up for this role too, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, not even just
I never
like
saw him, but yeah.
the look, but like your styles are so wildly different.
Yeah, I thought so too. It would be a completely different movie if it were filmed with a fat kid, I think, because there's a lot of physically specific jokes in the script, and I think it just works out with Kim and I'm up here and Kim's down here. I just don't know. I can't picture it with a short, stoutly kid.
And someone more geared towards comedy too.
Even though leading up to that, I was on Nickelodeon for 3 years, the broadest of comedy. But yeah, it would have been a completely different movie.
So what was that shift like, going from something like Nickelodeon to your first leading role in a feature?
Yeah. It kind of segued really nicely, actually. It wasn't a big, drastic change. I had learned a lot in the Nickelodeon days and the Disney days and all that. And it was just a matter of, I guess, being intuitive enough to know how to tone this part down, keep this physical comedy knob at 5, and turn the loud, bright eyes down to like a 3. But yeah, it was a nice transition. It wasn't like jumping into cold water.
And did all those levels come from your work with Keith? Because it sounds like at first he might have had like a wide pool of people to choose from in terms of what he wanted this role to look like and act like.
Yeah. So
it sounds like it could have been a lot of work for you to narrow it down and really figure out who Toby is.
Yeah, because leading up to when we stood the first day of shooting, Keith and I would talk a lot, and Kim and I would have rehearsals and stuff like that. So Toby was constantly evolving and changing, and everything was changing all the time until the first day of shooting when I kind of had to lock it in. And there was one thing that I wasn't content with, and it was the way that he walked. I just wasn't happy with it, and I was like, it just doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel organic. And so one day I was just walking with Keith, and I just looked over and I watched him walk for a little bit. And Keith walks he does this, hand is like normally always out kind of like this, and his right hand is always doing like a weird sort of hook thing, and he kind of saunters, but it's very like a confident saunter. But when you look at it, you're like, that man's he's highly crippled, but he's not at all. And so once that clicked, hey, what was the question? But yeah, I was just talking a lot with Kim and Brian and Keith, everybody.
And before you actually hit the set, there was a lot of rehearsal time, right?
Yeah, we had some rehearsals. One of the first rehearsals I had with Kim after I'd booked the job was the very, very last scene when their breakup, and with the kiss, and it was the first time professionally working with Kim where we knew we were going to be together, and I was going to have to kiss her for the very first time right off the bat. But even that, we just talked about it, and everything it was so smooth.
Speaking of starting with that kind of scene for a rehearsal, what about just managing this character who has such like a big arc? Like at the beginning, he has no confidence at all, whereas in the end, he's certainly taken his steps forward.
Yeah.
So how'd you go about, because I'm also sure you probably didn't shoot in sequence here.
No.
How'd you go about managing that arc throughout, while still like making him feel like one character?
Yeah, I had everything written out. I had this giant sort of diagram of every moment that sort of happens, the key moments, whether it be the moment where he stands up to the frat boys for the first time and defends Kim, which he would never do, and he had a couple in him, to opening up to Keith David's character just about his life, just opening himself up and talking about how he feels about something. And I wrote all this out, and then I actually drew some, not really, but kind of like an arc, and I wrote just what changes slowly, what sort of fades away, and by the end of it, his voice has dropped. He doesn't stutter as much. He's kind of stands with his shoulders back a little bit more. He just has kind of experienced all of this stuff that he's let out, that's sort of pulling everything down like this. He can just sort of breathe. And I just kept track of it. It was all just written down, and I would just go to it and reference it.
Is that the type of scene work you prefer to do, like a diagram, as opposed to, I don't know, maybe taking a scene and breaking it down and?
I don't know. It's changed since then. It changes with every audition, really, depending on what it is. But no, I work differently for whatever comes up.
So, how did all the preparation help you out in terms of once you got to set? Because I believe you told me last year that it was, what was it, like 28 days?
26.
26 days. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So, all that preparation, did that make everything run much more smoothly?
Oh yeah, big time. The first day was really rough. Everybody was really nervous, and it was Keith's first time, in front of a feature film crew and his producers and everything like that. And after we kind of got into it, from then on, it was just smooth sailing. And also, Toby, I feel like I grew up a lot during the shooting of it, a lot, and that definitely affected Toby too, probably in a more subliminal way or a way that I wasn't too aware of.
Well, you were 18 when you shot too. That's kind
18.
of a big transition point.
Yeah, and I was in a very different place in my life too. That sounds so dramatic. Way back in the day. But there was different beliefs and things have changed, but yeah.
So in that craziness of the first day on the set, were there any specific mishaps that happened that really threw everyone off?
The only moment that I really remember, it's the very first thing that we shot was the very first scene, actually. That was the only thing that was in sequence or in order. But we shot, right after that, we shot the very end of the movie, where Toby and Amanda are doing their date montage, and we're eating ice cream. And I don't know where the swarm of bees came over into my ice cream, and you'll actually notice in the film it's still there. You'll see me put down the spoon and kind of get really scared and back away. That was the only thing that I really remember going wrong. Other than that, it was just nerves. It was just raw nerves.
Well, I wouldn't have even sat there any longer. I would have been up out of that shot.
Well, if it wasn't the first day and if I wasn't as comfortable as I was, I would have, probably backed up because I was like, no, first day, be professional. Endure beasting for the crew. But yeah.
That's dedication.
Yeah, I guess.
What was it like after that, especially in terms of the amount of takes you got to do? Because I'm assuming you were pretty rushed here.
Yeah. Not entirely. Like Keith, he would work until he got what he wanted, and so would the crew, even if it was overtime, and our line producer was never too happy with that. But everybody worked really hard, everybody really cared about it. But yeah, you had to get it, pretty quickly.
Was the pressure on ever?
The only time pressure was ever on, and it's you can't even call it too much pressure, it was just sort of like slightly amplified gravity, according to pressure, was when something was time sensitive, when he needed a shot during the sunset, or when night was coming and it had to be day, That was the only time pressure was ever really on.
And are you the kind of actor who prefers that? As some sort of motivation, maybe? Adrenaline rush?
Maybe in some instances, I had a little bit to drink beforehand. Maybe in some instances, yeah. I don't know. Like with theater, I really like the nerves that come with it right before you go on stage. So yeah, yes. Answer is yes to your question.
So then I'll take it as you like the pressure of working with such iconic actors too. Like you got Kim, Brian Dennehy, Keith David.
Yeah.
How is it jumping into a scene with them?
It was. Yeah, it was kind of intimidating when I was thinking about it, kind of playing out how it would go the night before. I would meet Keith for the first time or Brian for the first time, and I would kind of be thinking, these guys are veterans, they know what they're doing. And while I have an idea of what I'm doing, I don't have nearly the amount of experience that they do or understanding of what's going on. But immediately upon meeting them and talking with them, I knew that everybody was there to support everybody. And like I was saying, we would talk. They would just talk to me about things, about acting and about theater and life and whatever. So the whole intimidating factor just flew out the window.
And what about their acting styles? Did you have to adjust in any specific ways for anyone?
Brian... No, not really. Keith Dave liked to be by himself before we would shoot, so we'd go over into a corner and sort of get related and then come back in. And Brian knew what he wanted. He was like, let's go, let's do it. What do we got? What kind of lens? Okay, so that's about right here, got it. Let's go. Where Keith would kind of ease into it. But no, I never had to alter anything.
So going back to Tribeca last year, like what's it been like for you up to
year?
Yeah, to
like
just about a year ago now.
Oh man, it feels so much longer ago. Okay.
So I mean, what have you been up to? Has it been nerve-wracking? Kind of wait. I mean,
it's been really hard waiting. We wrapped this film 3 years ago, and it's just kind of, we're all hoping. Kim, of course, doesn't really need it as much as Keith and I do, but we're all hoping work begets work, and so on.
Well, you have been working. I happened to catch you on an episode of Glee.
Yes, you didn't
Mr.
blink
Pizza Guy.
then. Yes, Dan the Pizza Man. I didn't get to sing, though. I sang one of the takes just to give him the option in case he wanted to use it, even though it was fun. And then I did the play, which was fantastic to get back on stage for a little while. But yeah, it's been a long haul. And we'll see what happens. And it still is nerve-wracking until April 8th comes and we get, the stats and find out how it did. Who knows? I just hope people see it.